Captain, multiple contacts coming out of hyperspace, one of the sensor crew announced from his station. The young ensign glanced over his shoulder to Captain Enadour, waiting for a response. Right on time, Enadour responded, looking at the bridge viewport of the Stolen Valor to see 3 First Order Star Destroyers exiting hyperspace in a wedge formation. The old Imperial interdictor somehow survived both wars and was what this whole trap relied on, proof of concept for a new strategy. Its gravity well projectors would allow Alliance reinforcements to make precise flanking jumps. The reinforcements had a few other old Imperial ships with special abilities that he was excited to see. Klaxons blared and lights flashed as crew members began pressing buttons and giving and receiving orders. The holographic battle map in front of the captain showed 3 red triangles moving toward the cluster of smaller blue shapes that were their patrol group. Initiate gravity well and launch interceptors, Captain Enadour's executive officer spoke up from his side. Lieutenant Doza. She stood up from leaning over the display, her hands going from the edge of the holotable to her back. Crew members began making clicks and hums around their stations. The captain remembered the first time he heard about the First Order. The Senate was ready to be done with the war. Too many senators believed they could go right back to the old Republic, recreating the same conditions that led to the Empire's rise. A blue glow started growing outside the viewport. Looks like the gravity well was powering up, the captain thought. The soft white walls and floor of the bridge turned to a light blue around him, the color of the old Senate roundel. He still couldn't understand why they voted to dissolve the Alliance and reduce the new Navy by 90%, and left the smaller planets undefended, creating sympathy for the First Order, just like where Doza grew up. He glanced back to her as she turned toward the comms operators, likely to give the signal to their reinforcements. He looked back to the viewport as a swarm of their new interceptors, followed by a dozen X-Wings, flew up into view, screaming toward the ties growing ever so larger in the distance. Doza turned back to his side as if sensing his thought. She said, "Hopefully the Senate learned its lesson this time." The captain turned toward her. "Well, everyone who voted to demilitarize is dead, so I think we got a better chance this time," he responded. She smirked. Dark humor, unfortunately, is what got them all through the war. "Destroyers in range. Power readings indicate turbolaser barrage is imminent," the sensor operator from earlier spoke up again. The captain looked out the viewport to see the destroyers slowly getting closer, with fighters starting to break off in the dogfights. He couldn't stop thinking that scared planets accepting First Order stormtroopers for protection felt eerily like the Senate adopting the clone army. Sometimes he thought he was the only person who read the history books. Drill Organa told the Senate once that the clones were created by the Emperor with mind control trips like droids. Without an established military, the Republic had no choice but to accept its protection. Enadour's thoughts were interrupted as green turbolaser fires started pelting the shields. Loud footsteps then sounded behind Doza and the captain. "I hope you two are enjoying your political academy, but where are those reinforcements? Losing my drones are acceptable, but not my aces. Or us," Commander Dameron said as he rushed onto the bridge, his own drone likely destroyed, freeing up to join the bridge. His bright red flight suit contrasted with the blue and white of the bridge. Another beeping started sounding from the sensor station. "Friendly contact," yelled the operator. A Starhawk battleship came out of hyperspace right between the left 2 destroyers, causing the approaching fighters to scramble out of the way. The large wedge-shaped bow intercepting the onslaught of turbolaser fire that was depleting the interdictor shields. Red turbolaser fire then erupted on the left destroyer, and a purple glow started growing around the central one, the Starhawk's magnetite tractor beam holding it in place. The captain then looked at the hull table to see half a dozen more blue shapes appear behind the flank of the right destroyer. 2 large ones appeared to the far right of the battle entirely, at the edge of sensor range. The ship started turning and trying to shift fire behind it. The comms operator Doza had spoken to pressed a few keys on his station, responding, "The Anvil is hailing us." A hologram of the Mon Calamari admiral flickered and hummed as his accented voice declared, "Starhawk Anvil reporting." The captain keyed a button on the table. "We were getting worried, Admiral," Enadour said. Even on the hologram he could see the admiral's smile. Another hologram appeared, of a Carillion male who interrupted, "And lose this chance." A massive red laser beam coming from behind them obliterated the central destroyer. I don't think so, he finished. I take it back, Commander Poe said, looking around the whole table to look out the viewport, red light reflecting off his face. I think we all should focus on this military alliance. As the beam dissipated, Mandalorian fighters came screaming over the viewport to assist the Starhawk, the signature Munhorde emblem of the Nevarra Protectors clearly visible on their hulls. Enadour looked back to the holotable as a third figure came to life, with an armored Mandalorian in the seat of a starfighter. Hey, save some for the rest of us, the helmeted voice said. The starfighter reinforcements took out the rest of the ties. Proton torpedoes began exploding along the engine bank of the right destroyer, as gunships and torpedo frigates could be seen maneuvering below the rear of the ship, too fast for its slow turning. Cluster bombs obliterated the point defense missiles trying to intercept the ordnance dump. Republic B-wings came into view, letting out smaller red beams of their own over the destroyer that was engaging the Starhawk. Commander Dameron pushed past Doza and addressed the table. Ask for a surrender. For Finn. With all three enemy ships on fire or venting into space, this was truly their last chance. The holograms looked at each other as the starfighters peeled off and the Starhawk ceased fire. The Mon Calamari captain pressed a button off hologram and started speaking again. This is Admiral Akiva of the Freedom Alliance and Galactic Federal Republic. You have 5 minutes for those who want to surrender to enter your escape pods. We offer you exile in our outer rim forces for a length of time determined by a war tribunal. As the minutes ticked by, multiple escape pods began deploying from all but the central destroyer, which began firing on the pods with its remaining batteries, wildly missing its targeting systems destroyed. The Starhawk re-engaged its tractor beam, pulling away the escape pods, then pulling the leftmost destroyer into the other two, starting a chain of explosions that destroyed all three ships. Well, that's the last we'll be seeing of them, Doza said. I hope so, on-Cal hologram responded and disappeared. Applause and cheers echoed around the bridge. They deserve it, Captain Doza thought. And then congratulated the crew, saying, They deserve it, Captain Enadour thought. And then congratulated the crew, saying, Good work, everyone. We'll have to keep our jobs this time. A couple of the cheers turned to chuckles as Captain Enadour nodded to the navigator and pilot who clicked a few buttons and pushed the lever that turned the fiery explosions to lines of starlight.